You've had a moment to kind of go through and think about those notes. So let's look at this next section of text and think about, why does weather and season matter? Your key purpose here for this entire lesson is to identify the weather and season in the Scarlet Letter and then connect the occurrences to the revelation of the theme in a formal written paragraph. It's going to be the same process that you've been doing with each module, where we're going to look at the content. You will then go through, learn it, use your closure activity, and apply the content, and then that next step is the paragraph. The difference here is we've modeled each step of the paragraph before now, so at this time we're going to focus on the content, and that writing of the paragraph is something that you should have already mastered. You went through your notes and we kind of paired you with these essential questions to begin with. Why does weather or season matter in literature? According to Foster, how does weather or season function in literature? And what are the implications of common weather elements? And then, what does each season represent? Now, these two are brought together because the obvious thing is that those weather elements are indicative of the season. So it may not tell you exactly which season, but you can identify it based on the weather that you've experienced in reading about the setting. Or maybe it doesn't speak specifically about the weather, but it tells you it was spring of the year, and you can start to identify the symbols there as you transition through the text based on either the weather that you read about or the season that you've been given hints of. So we want to recap really quickly and make sure that we've gotten it in terms of, how does weather function in literature? At any point, if you do not have this information in your notes, push pause and take notes on this video. The first thing is that weather is a part of setting to some degree. It sets the tone, the mood, and the atmosphere. Now let's just do a quick recap. When you look at tone, I always want you to see that tone is T. Tone is them. Mood is M, which is me. So tone is the way they want me to feel, whereas mood is the way I feel. And then the atmosphere. So think of a story that you might have heard, it was a dark and stormy night. It sets that tone and mood immediately. Versus one bright spring day. You can immediately feel the difference between that doom and sadness and darkness and the happiness of the spring. It also serves to progress the plot, and you want to keep in mind that with any story that you're looking at how that element progresses the plot. So weather often forces characters together. Think about the fact that maybe they're out on a hike and it is pouring down rain and there happens to be a cave, so they're going to go into this ledge to get out of the rain. It brings the characters together. Then there's the misery factor. The character challenges because, well, you can be really miserable in the rain. You can get sick in the rain. You can die in the rain. Think about all of the bad things that can come with lots of rain, the flooding and that sort of thing. But it's also democratic because it treats all the same. So it doesn't matter your class, your ethnicity, your race, your education. None of that stuff matters because when it rains on everyone. So when you think about the weather conditions as a symbol, when you think of it, what do you think of when you think of rain? Rain can be seen as clean. It's a form of purification or baptism. It removes the sin or it removes the stain. You can it can be clean as it's falling, but then when it hits the ground, it can make a mess. So if you think about like out in the rain, typically when you're walking home from school in the rain, your top half might be clean, but the rim of your pants or your shoes are going to be dirty from that dirt down there. It can also be restorative. It brings a dying earth back to life, or we're going to look at that with Beauty and the Beast here in a minute. But it can be destructive. It causes an illness, which might be a challenge, or it might be your death. It can be destructive through natural disasters. Think about that fear of drowning. Think about flooding. Think about any of those elements as well. But then there's a rainbow. What do you think of when you think of rainbows? Do you think of Lucky Charms and the little leprechauns and how everybody's happy trying to get the golden treasure at the end of that rainbow? You are intended to think of God's promise to never destroy the world again. Foster says that the rainbow is the sign of hope. It's a promise of the peace, often between heaven and earth. So when you see that rainbow in literature, you want to think about the peaceful or the happy things that are occurring. Or fog. Driving down the road at night, it gets foggy. What do you think? Fog almost always signals some sort of confusion. Typically, it's going to be a mental or an ethical fog because people don't see clearly. I know where I live in the fog, it makes the roads a lot more treacherous because of that confusion aspect. Think about traffic in the morning. What do the roads look like? Or what does the traffic report in the morning of fog happen? So also when you think about people that have been unconscious, they're foggy. Or when you first wake up in the morning, you're foggy. So that becomes a symbol of literature as well. But then there's also snow as a symbol. So when you think of snow, what do you think of? Aside from getting out of school and snow delays. Snow has two feelings, because think about like up north, when they get all of that snow, they may not get out of school. But when they get dumped like huge amounts of snow, it can cause a lot of problems. You think about the blizzards. So negatively, it can be cold, it can be stark, it's inhospitable, it's inhumane. There's nothingness, there's death, there's suffocation. You get trapped in your house because the snow comes up over the doors, or you can't go anywhere because you've got to use a snowplow to get to the mailbox, or any of those elements. But then positively, if there's just a small amount of snow, it could be clean or pure, it could be playful. You think if there's just a little bit of snow, kids want to go outside and make snow angels and have snowball fights. If there's 10 feet of snow, kids get tired of it and they're ready for it to go away. So, as you think through rain and rainbows and fog and snow, you always want to think, what could they mean? What is that symbol that comes with them? Next, you want to think about seasons. So we just spoke through some specific elements of weather, but seasons can be viewed as an indication of age or of time passing. Spring, we think of it as a childhood moment or youthful moments. That's when little babies are born. Summer is about the adulthood or the romance, that fulfillment or passion in life. Just think about the symbolism of the fall or of autumn. It's like middle age. It's the decline. You're tired. You're thinking about the harvest. And then winter, going right back to those weather patterns that are associated with it, it becomes a sign of old age, resentment, death, being alone. Typically, when you reference a season, it's intended to draw an emotional component. So the idea here is to connect to the emotion that you're going to have. Spring might be a sign of youth or freshness, some directness, openness, naivety, flirtation. Summer is about passion and love. Fall and autumn can be exhaustion. You're tired from working so hard. You can be reflective, so you're nostalgically looking back on what's come before. And typically it's about benefiting only from your effort. Winter, again, going back to the fact that the days are really short in the winter. It's usually cold. It gets dark early. You've got lots of snow. So you start to see the connections of anger and hatred, the cynicism, worldly or emotionally reserved, dependence on the opinions of others. And you can actually connect this with yourself. Like, when are you happy? Well, typically you're happy in the spring. Then you've got the summer and you've got all this free time. Then, admit it, you get a little bored. Fall and autumn, you go back to school. It sort of sucks to be you. Winter is just the same pattern of redundancy. You're bored. There's not a lot to do. And then spring comes and you're excited and you can't wait to go do whatever you're going to do again. So those same patterns happen in literature as we see in our life. At this point, I want you to take a moment to go back through your notes, process through your notes, and make sure that you can answer the essential questions, because at this point, we have gone through the new material and you should have learned the basic content. Once you've reviewed your notes, you're going to move into that next part where we'll model identifying weather and season in Beauty and the Beast Then you'll have the opportunity for talking through Kitty and Mac if that's what you choose. And then that third one where you're going to apply it to the Scarlet Letter on your own as you practice what we've talked through. So again, go back, revise your notes, and think, how can readers use season to help make meaning from a text? Why is rain such a big deal? What are the other important elements of weather? And then what does that progression through the seasons mean in the literary world? If you have any questions, feel free to stop the videos and ask your professor.